Here are 5 major perceptions of beings who know they are worthy and deserving of all of God's blessings. The first says, "My self-esteem comes from myself." This person's statement of his or her inner perceptions might be something like the following: "As a child of God, my worthiness is a given. I am not divided into spirit and body. Rather, I am a part of the all-knowing creation called God itself." Too often, the ideas of other egos are what constitute our impressions of ourselves. We listen to the admonitions of others who have low self-regard and who are attempting to exert influence and power over us. It is beyond the scope of most young children to resist these ideas. But as adults, we can look back at this hypothesis and free ourselves from its absurdity. You must know within that you are part of the light that lighteth every man. You are evidence of the existence of God, and in your own particularized individuality, you have God within you. Therefore, you must be able to say with conviction, "God is me, and I am God." It is this truth that will free you from your feelings of unworthiness to attract to yourself all that you desire. A second statement of those who feel worthy: I accept myself without complaint. A person with this self-perception thinks something like the following: I am willing to face everything about myself without lapsing into self-contempt or repudiating my essential value as a piece of God. Self-acceptance is something that must be unconditionally known within ourselves. To accept oneself is not necessarily to accept every behavior. Rather, it is a refusal to engage in sabotaging acts of self-loathing. If you are in a state of self-rejection, you cannot feel worthy of the munificence of the universe. Your inner energy is centered on what is wrong with yourself and with complaining to yourself and anyone who will listen. Self-acceptance is nothing more than a shift in consciousness. It requires only a change of mind. If your hair is falling out, then you have the choice to mask it, worry about it, or accept it. Acceptance means that you honor your body and the divine intelligence that is at work. And when someone else implies that you have a problem because your hair is falling out, you don't even know how to relate to their observation. Acceptance removes the label of problem. This is not a faked attitude. It is merely removing the ego from your inner assessments, which are centered on the approval of others. With self-acceptance, you are able to honestly say, I am what I am, and I accept it. Once this attitude is firmly in place from a position of self-honesty, your worthiness to receive the gifts of the universe become aligned with that divine power. A third attitude of self-acceptance: I take full responsibility for my life and what it is and is not. To be willing to accept total responsibility for yourself puts you in a position of being worthy of receiving and attracting the objects of your desire. If someone else is responsible for your perceived shortcomings, and you are blaming them for these troubles, then you are also saying that in order to manifest your heart's desire, you need to have the permission of those others. This act of abdicating responsibility destroys your ability to empower yourself to higher levels of awareness. I come from the position that there are absolutely no accidents, and that everything that occurs in my life has a lesson attached to it, and that I brought it into my life. Thus, if I am having a negative thought and at the same moment I bump my head on a cupboard door, I say, what was I thinking at that moment? And I take full responsibility for correcting those negative thoughts and for the bump that reminded me to correct that kind of thinking. This little game serves me in the sense of taking full responsibility for my life and eradicating the inclination to blame other people or circumstances. I trust in this inner knowledge. I rely on seemingly coincidental happenings, and I know that I am responsible for all of it. As this sense of responsibility has grown, I find it impossible to blame anyone for anything in my life. The willingness to be responsible without complaining puts you into the natural flow of all divine energy. With an attitude of self-responsibility, you will notice that the heavens are exceedingly cooperative. A fourth attitude of self-acceptance says, I do not choose to accept guilt into my life. This mindset creates thoughts such as, I will not use up the precious currency of my life, my present moments, immobilized with guilt over what happened in the past. This statement requires you to know the difference between A, genuine regret and learning from the past, and B, remaining in a state of reproach or guilt today. Learning from one's mistakes and taking corrective action are spiritually and psychologically sound practices. You did it, you didn't like the way you felt afterwards, so you decide not to repeat the behavior. That is not guilt. Guilt is when you continue to feel immobilized and depressed. Those feelings keep you from living effectively in the present. For example, if you are chronically overweight or addicted, your internal sentence of guilt sounds something like this: I'm really going to love myself when I finally am at a normal weight. Or I will truly value myself as a worthwhile human being when I am finally over this addiction once and for all. These internal sentences need to be shifted to, I love myself while I am overweight. I am not this weight in the first place, and I refuse to think of myself in self-degrading terms regardless of the condition of my body. I am love, and I extend this love to all of me. This same kind of inner programming must take place for addictions or anything else that you feel guilty about. By removing the inclination to wallow in self-reproach, we remove the idea that by suffering in the present moment, we will redeem ourselves and can pay for our sins with guilt. Life doesn't work this way. The solution is in loving yourself and in trusting in God that your shortcomings are nothing more than lessons leading you to a new spiritual level. And finally, a fifth assessment of those who have self-acceptance. I understand the importance of having harmony between my thoughts, my feelings, and my behavior. To the extent that you remain incongruent in any of these three areas of thinking, feeling, or behaving, you will impede the process of heightened awareness and the ability to manifest your heart's desire. This is the last of the 5 points that contribute to your feelings of worthiness about receiving God's munificence into your life. It is also the most significant because it defines your level of integrity. To be congruent, you must be honest about your own thoughts. If you are honest with yourself, you will find that your emotional reactions will be consistent with your inner world.